You hear that a lot about people like the Poffos, that they were very tight with the dollar, and other people, and Mick Foley in contemporary times, and it certainly makes sense. If you're in this to make money, you don't want to blow your money on an expensive renter car or an expensive hotel room. But who would you say was the tightest with their money out of anyone you ran across in the wrestling business?
I'll tell you, here's a story. It's a true story. We're doing television in New York. Pedro's the champion, and I like Pedro, and he was a good guy. And Pedro, he was all tanned. He'd been back to Puerto Rico. He came back in, and he was tanned, and he had a beautiful suit on. I think it was like a kind of like a maroon, or it could have been red. I don't know, because he's Puerto Rican. Red's the color. But gold president with a Rolex watch, looking good. Looking really clean. And I saw him reach into inside of his sport coat pocket, and he pulled out a pack of gum. And when he pulled out the pack of gum, I thought, you know what? I'd like to have a piece of that gum. So I said, I'd like to have a piece of gum. I just feel like a piece of gum, and I don't chew gum. I said, I feel like a piece of gum. So I went over to Pedro and I said, Pete, you mind throwing me a piece of the gum? He says, and I swear this is what he said: "This gum not for the boys."
What?
That's what I said. I thought he was a rib. I thought he was kidding. I said, what? He said, "This gum not for the boys." And he put the pack back in his pocket. And I thought, you cheap son of a...
I mean, did you see the label? Was it just like a regular juicy fruit or something?
Yeah, it was like Wrigley's, Spearmint, whatever. I said, it's a nickel. Back then it was a nickel. The guy's making a load of money. This gum is not for the boys. I want a piece of gum. I don't want to borrow your Rolex.
Do you have any gum that's for the boys?
I don't think he did. I don't think.
Recently on the Super Podcast, I had Tom Burke on. Tom's a wrestling historian. He was involved with Ring Wrestling Magazine in the 60s, and WFIA in the 70s and 80s, and knows his stuff and is just so knowledgeable and has a lot of friends. He was close with Walter Killer Kowalski and Wild Bull Curry and many other people. And he told the story on my show that in, I don't know, maybe 73, 73, 74, he was living in New York, and there was a consignment shop he would regularly go in and look for wrestling stuff, whether it was magazines or whatever it was. He would look for things. And he's in there, and the guy who owned the shop's wife yells, "Oh, show him the thing we got the other day, the wrestling prop." And he's thinking, what the hell's a wrestling prop? There was no merchandise. This is the early 70s. What's a wrestling prop?
Right.
And the guy came out, and wrapped in the New York Post was the WWF Championship belt. Pedro had pawned it off in this shop for like $75, because Tom got it for, I think, $150. And he was always like, how did this happen? Like, how does this happen? And years later, he ran into, I think, Pete Sanchez, and Pete said, yeah, Pedro loved the horses. That was all he said.
That's all he had to say. Pedro loved the horses. Well, there you go. See, that's karma for not giving me the piece of gum.
You lose the belt, literally.
Yeah, exactly. You got to hawk the belt because of the horse deal, the horse habit, right?
This belt not for the boys.
This belt not for the boys, amigo. I'm sorry. What the hell is that all about, man?
I can't even imagine like you standing there and him saying that to you. Like you thought it was a rib. I mean, what else are you supposed to think? It's such a weird comment.
Yeah, very strange, but that's a wrestling business. And New York was New York, and there's so many stories in New York. I mean, God, I've got so many stories I could tell you about. The stories about Fuji, the river. Oh, man.